My name is Sophia Castellano. I'm 28 years old. 4 years ago, I was standing in a lawyer's office in Manhattan, holding a prenuptial agreement that would sign away my entire inheritance to a man I'd met exactly 3 times. My mother stood beside me, perfume expensive, smile desperate. Just sign it, Sophia. Stop being dramatic. This is what's best for the family. The family she meant wasn't me. It was Castellano Luxury Hotels, the business my grandfather built, my father mismanaged, and my parents were about to lose. I had one signature left, one decision that nobody had planned for, one move that would change who owned everything, who controlled the future, and who got to decide what my life would look like. This is the story of how I used that signature to destroy the future my parents sold without my permission and build one they never saw coming. Before we start, hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see how this plays out. Drop your location in the comments. I love knowing who's watching from where. Now let me take you back to 2019, to a penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side where I learned that my parents had been negotiating my marriage like a corporate merger. I grew up in luxury. The Castellano family owned a chain of boutique hotels across the East Coast, 12 properties in major cities, each one a historic building converted into a high-end destination. My grandfather, Antonio Castellano, had started with one hotel in Boston in 1962 and built an empire through attention to detail, personal service, and an obsession with excellence. By the time I was born in 1996, Castellano Luxury Hotels was worth over $200 million. My father, Marcus Castellano, inherited the business when my grandfather died in 2005. I was 9 years old. My father was 42, ambitious and absolutely terrible at running a hotel chain. Where my grandfather had focused on guest experience and employee satisfaction, my father focused on expansion and profit margins. He bought 3 new properties in 2 years, all of them requiring massive renovations. He took out loans against the existing hotels to finance the purchases. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit. Tourism collapsed. Occupancy rates plummeted. The loans came due. My father's aggressive expansion turned into a drowning weight, pulling the entire company underwater. We didn't lose everything. My father was too proud to file bankruptcy, but we came close. He sold 2 of the hotels at a loss, laid off a quarter of the staff, and spent the next decade trying to recover what he'd destroyed. My mother, Victoria, handled the crisis the way she handled everything, by maintaining appearances. We still lived in the penthouse, still shopped at Bergdorf's, still summered in the Hamptons. The fact that we were doing it on credit and liquidated investments was nobody's business. I grew up understanding that image mattered more than reality in my family. What I didn't understand until much later was that my future was currency they were willing to spend. I went to Columbia for undergrad, studying business and hospitality management. My father assumed I'd join the family business eventually, but he never actually asked what I wanted. My mother assumed I'd marry well, preferably to someone who could help restore the family's fortune and status. Neither of them asked if I had my own plans. I did. I wanted to work in sustainable hospitality, helping hotels reduce their environmental impact while maintaining luxury standards. I'd interned at 2 hotels that were pioneering green practices, and I'd written my senior thesis on the economics of sustainable luxury tourism. When I told my father about a job offer from a consulting firm specializing in hotel sustainability, he laughed. "Sophia, that's a nice hobby, but the family business needs you. We can add some recycling programs or whatever makes you feel good, but your real job is learning how to run Castellano Hotels." "I don't want to run Castellano Hotels." His face darkened. "You don't want to run the business your grandfather built, the legacy he left for you? Grandpa left a legacy of excellence and innovation. You turned it into debt and desperation. I don't want any part of that." We didn't speak for 3 months. In 2020, during the pandemic, the hotel industry collapsed again. Castellano Hotels survived, barely by taking on more debt and deferring maintenance on several properties. By 2021, my father was drowning in payments he couldn't make and investors who were losing patience. That's when the Blackwood family appeared. Harrison Blackwood was a real estate developer from Greenwich, Connecticut. His family owned commercial properties across New England and had the kind of money that made my father's diminished fortune look like pocket change. Harrison had one son, Ethan Blackwood. 31 years old, Harvard MBA. Decent looking in that generic wealthy prep school way, and absolutely uninterested in hospitality or sustainable tourism or anything beyond golf and his trust fund. I met Ethan at a charity gala in the spring of 2022. My mother had insisted I attend. The Blackwoods will be there. Very important family. Harrison is interested in hospitality investments. Ethan approached me during cocktail hour with the confidence of someone who'd never been rejected. You're Sophia Castellano. I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I hope. My father says your family's hotel chain has great bones but needs capital. Not exactly romantic small talk, but that should have been my first warning. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. He knew nothing about hotels. Nothing about tourism. When I mentioned sustainability initiatives, his eyes glazed over. When I asked what he did for work, he said, family office stuff, investments, you know. I didn't know, and I didn't care to find out. 2 weeks later, my mother invited me to dinner at their penthouse. Just family, she said. Your father wants to discuss something important. I arrived to find the Blackwood family already seated in our dining room. Harrison, his wife Catherine, and Ethan, all of them looking at me like I was a business proposal they were evaluating. My father stood up when I entered. Sophia, wonderful. We were just discussing an exciting opportunity. I sat down slowly, already feeling the trap closing. Harrison Blackwood smiled. Your father has shared some of the challenges Castellano Hotels is facing. I believe we can help each other. I'm interested in diversifying into boutique hospitality, and your family has exactly the kind of established brand I'm looking for. You want to invest in our hotels? More than invest. I'd like to merge our family's interests. The Blackwoods have capital and real estate expertise. The Castellanos have hospitality knowledge and an established brand. Together, we could create something remarkable. My mother was practically glowing. My father looked relieved for the first time in years. That sounds like a business partnership, I said carefully. It is, Harrison agreed, and like any good partnership, it works best when the families are aligned, when they have shared interests. He looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at me. Oh, you're talking about a marriage, I said flatly. We're talking about a merger, Catherine Blackwood said smoothly. Business and family, the way the best partnerships have been built for generations. I looked at my parents. Did you agree to this? We discussed it as a possibility, my father said. Nobody's forcing anything, but Ethan is a fine young man and this partnership could save the hotels. You mean save you from bankruptcy? The room went silent. My mother's smile tightened. Sophia, let's not be dramatic. This is an opportunity for everyone. An opportunity I wasn't consulted about. You being consulted now, Harrison said. Ethan would like to take you to dinner. Get to know you properly. See if there's compatibility. Compatibility. Like we were software being tested for integration. I should have walked out right then. Should have told them all to go to hell. But I was 26 years old, sitting in a room full of people who'd clearly been planning this for weeks, and I didn't know how to fight something I hadn't seen coming. So I agreed to dinner with Ethan. We went out 3 times over the next month. Expensive restaurants, polite conversation, absolutely zero chemistry. Ethan was fine. Not cruel, not stupid, just empty. He talked about his golf handicap, his ski house, his friends' startups that were disrupting industries I'd never heard of. When I talked about sustainable hospitality, he nodded politely and changed the subject. After the 3rd dinner, he drove me home in his Tesla and said, I think this could work, don't you? Work how? The arrangement. We're both practical people. We get along fine. Our families benefit. We'd have a comfortable life. You're talking about marriage like it's a business contract, isn't it? My parents have been married 35 years and they treat it exactly like that. Seems to work for them. I got out of the car without answering. 2 weeks later, my father called me into his office at the Castellano headquarters, a small suite in Midtown that used to be much larger before he sold off the extra space. The Blackwoods are ready to move forward, he said without preamble. Harrison will invest $50 million into Castellano Hotels. In exchange, they get 40% ownership and seats on the board. The investment is contingent on the merger being formalized. The merger being my marriage to Ethan, a marriage that would benefit you as much as anyone. Ethan will have access to the Blackwood family fortune you'd want for nothing. I don't want their money, Dad. I want to build my own career. Your career? He looked genuinely confused. Sophia, you have an opportunity to be part of one of the wealthiest families in New England. To help save your family's legacy, what career could possibly matter more than that? Mine. My choices. My life. Your grandfather built this company for you. For our family. Are you really going to let your selfishness destroy that? The guilt trip was perfectly executed. My father knew exactly how to weaponize my grandfather's memory. I need time to think, I said. We don't have time. The debt payments are due in 4 months. Without this investment, we lose 2 more hotels, possibly all of them. Then maybe you should have run the business better. His face went cold. Get out. For 2 weeks, my phone exploded with messages from my mother. Lunch invitations. Texts about how excited she was about the wedding plans. Links to Pinterest boards she created for venues I'd never agreed to. She was planning my wedding without my consent, to a man I barely knew, to save a business my father had destroyed. The breaking point came when Harrison Blackwood's lawyer contacted me directly. They'd drawn up a prenuptial agreement. The terms were simple. Upon marriage, my trust fund for my grandfather $8 million that I'd inherited when I turned 25 would be placed in a joint account controlled by Ethan and me. The Blackwood investment in Castellano hotels would be structured so that my shares in the company would be held in a Crody Meet marital trust with Ethan as co-trustee. Essentially, I'd be signing over control of my inheritance to Ethan and his family in exchange for the privilege of being his wife. When I called my father to ask if he'd seen the prenup, he was dismissive. That's standard for families at this level, Sophia. Assets need to be protected. My assets. Being given to them. They're investing $50 million. They need assurances. And I need what? Nothing? You need to stop being selfish and think about the family. I hung up and called the one person I knew would tell me the truth. My grandfather's former lawyer, Richard Chen, who'd retired but still answered when I needed advice. They're trying to take everything, I told him after explaining the situation. Richard was quiet for a moment. Sophia, do you remember the trust your grandfather set up for you? The $8 million. Yes, that's what they want access to. That's not the only trust. I froze. What? Your grandfather set up 2 trusts. One was for your personal inheritance, the $8 million you received at 25. The other was a business trust. It contains his original shares in Castellano Hotels. 15% of the company. I don't have shares in Castellano Hotels. 15% of the company. I don't have shares in Castellano. My father owns the company. Your father owns 60%. The board and investors own 25%. Your grandfather's trust owns 15%. You're the beneficiary of that trust, Sophia. You have been since he died. But the shares don't transfer to you directly until you're 28 or until you request them, whichever comes first. My 28th birthday was in 3 weeks. Why didn't anyone tell me this? Your father was the trustee until you turned 28. He's been voting those shares on your behalf. I assumed he'd explained this to you. Of course he hadn't, because if I knew I owned 15% of the company, I'd know I had power. I'd know I had options. I'd know I didn't need to marry Ethan Blackwood to save anything. Richard, what happens if I claim those shares now? You sign a release form. The shares transfer from the trust to you directly. You become a voting shareholder with a board seat. And if there's a proposed investment that requires board approval, you'd have the power to vote on it. To negotiate terms. To block it if you didn't like the conditions. For the first time in months, I smiled. Before I tell you what I did next, I need you to do something. If you've ever had your family try to control your future, try to sell you out for their benefit, type mine in the comments. Let me know you understand what it feels like to have to fight for your own life. And smash that subscribe button because you're going to want to see how this ends. My 28th birthday was on a Saturday. I spent it alone in my apartment, reviewing documents Richard had sent me, the trust agreement, the share certificates, the board bylaws. I called Richard on Sunday morning. I want to claim the shares. I'll prepare the paperwork. You can sign tomorrow. I want to sign today, and I want to call a board meeting for Wednesday. That's very short notice. The wedding is scheduled for Saturday. The prenup signing is Thursday. I need to move faster than they can react. Richard was quiet then. What are you planning, Sophia? To use my one signature to take back everything they tried to give away? Monday morning, I signed the release forms. By Monday afternoon, I was the registered owner of 15% of Castellano Luxury Hotels, with all voting rights and a board seat I'd never been told I had. Tuesday morning, I sent a letter to all board members calling an emergency meeting for Wednesday at 2 p.m. Required attendance. Agenda. Proposed Blackwood investment. My father called within an hour. What the hell are you doing? Exercising my rights as a shareholder. Funny how nobody mentioned I had those. You can't block this investment, Sophia. We need it. Then you should have included me in the negotiations instead of trying to sell me like livestock. This isn't about you. It's exactly about me. You made it about me when you attached the investment to my marriage. Now I'm making it about me by using the power Grandpa gave me that you tried to hide. If you block this deal, the company will collapse. Then I guess you should have thought of that before you lied to me about owning shares. I hung up. Wednesday's board meeting was spectacular. My father was there, looking like he hadn't slept. My mother was there. Though she wasn't on the board, she'd come to support my father. Harrison Blackwood was there with his lawyers. 3 other board members, investors and industry people, and me. I walked in wearing a Tom Ford suit I'd bought specifically for this moment. Hair perfect. Confidence borrowed from every woman who'd ever had to fight for her right to control her own life. Good afternoon, I said, taking the seat Richard had confirmed was legally mine. Thank you all for making time on short notice. I'm Sophia Castellano, and as of Monday, I'm the owner of 15% of this company and a voting member of this board. My father's jaw tightened. Harrison Blackwood looked confused. I've reviewed the proposed investment from Blackwood Properties, I continued. I have concerns about the terms. This deal is done, my father said. We've been negotiating for months. You've been negotiating. I haven't, and since the deal requires board approval and I'm a board member with 15% voting power, my approval matters. One of the other board members, a woman named Patricia who'd been with the company for 20 years, leaned forward. What are your concerns, Ms. Castellano? I pulled out the investment proposal and the prenup. The investment is contingent on my marriage to Ethan Blackwood. The prenup requires me to sign over control of my personal trust and my company shares to a marital trust controlled by Ethan. Essentially, the Blackwoods get 40% of the company plus control of my 15%, giving them majority ownership. In exchange, they're investing $50 million into a company they then control. Silence. Patricia looked at my father. Is this accurate? My father shifted uncomfortably. The terms are complicated. The terms are simple, I interrupted. They're buying control of the company using my inheritance and my freedom as currency, and nobody asked me if I was for sale. Harrison Blackwood finally spoke. Ms. Castellano, these are standard protections for a family investment of this magnitude. Mr. Blackwood, with respect, there's nothing standard about requiring a woman to marry your son and sign away her assets in order to invest in a hotel chain. If you're interested in investing in Castellano Hotels, make an investment proposal based on business merits. Leave my personal life out of it. The personal connection is part of the value proposition. No, it's a control mechanism, and I'm voting no. My father stood up. Sophia, you can't. I can, and I am. This proposal is rejected. One of the other board members, an older man named George who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. I vote no as well. This arrangement is inappropriate. Patricia nodded. I also vote no. That was 3 votes out of 7. Enough to block the proposal. Harrison Blackwood's face was stone. This is a mistake, Miss Castellano. Your company needs capital. Then offer capital. Not a marriage contract. He stood, gathering his papers. We're done here. After they left, my father turned to me with fury in his eyes. You just destroyed the only option we had to save this company. No, Dad. You destroyed this company through bad decisions and worse management. I'm just refusing to be the sacrifice you use to avoid the consequences. You're being selfish. I'm being sane. You tried to sell me to save yourself. That's not selfish. That's called having boundaries. I stood up, looked at Patricia and George and the other board members. If anyone is interested in discussing actual solutions to save Castellano Hotel solutions that don't involve selling off your children, I'm available. Otherwise, this meeting is adjourned. I walked out. My phone exploded immediately. My mother, crying about how I'd humiliated the family. Ethan, confused about why the wedding was off when he hadn't realized it was a business transaction. Harrison Blackwood's lawyer, threatening legal action for something vague that wouldn't hold up. I turned my phone off and went to see Richard. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you have 15% of a struggling company and no easy path forward. What do you want to happen?" That's when I told him my real plan. See, while my father had been negotiating with Harrison Blackwood, I'd been talking to someone else, a private equity firm that specialized in sustainable hospitality investments, a firm that had reviewed Castellano Hotel's portfolio and saw potential not in expansion, but in renovation and repositioning. They'd offered $40 million for 35% of the company, with no marriage requirements. They wanted operational control, a seat on the board, and a commitment to implementing sustainable practices across all properties within 3 years. My father had dismissed their proposals 6 months ago as too complicated and not enough money. I kept their contact information. 3 days after the board meeting, I called them back. "I'm a 15% shareholder in Castellano Hotels with a board seat. If I can get majority board support, would you still be interested in the investment?" "Absolutely. But we'd need your father to agree, or at least not fight it." "Leave my father to me." I called a family meeting, not at the office, at my apartment on my territory. My father showed up angry. My mother showed up crying. I showed up with Richard, a mediator, and a proposal. "Here's the situation," I said. "Castellano Hotels needs capital. The Blackwood deal is dead. I have a different investor who's interested, a firm that specializes in sustainable hospitality. They'll invest $40 million for 35% of the company." "That's less money for more ownership," my father said. "The Blackwood deal was better. The Blackwood deal required me to marry someone I don't love and sign away my inheritance. This deal requires operational changes and sustainability commitments. Which cost would you rather pay?" Silence. "This firm wants me involved in the renovation process," I continued. "They want someone who understands sustainability in luxury hospitality. That's me. So here's my offer. Support this investment. Give me a real role in the company and work with me to actually fix what you broke, or refuse, and I'll use my 15% to block any other proposal that isn't in my interest." My mother spoke for the first time. "You're blackmailing us." "No, I'm negotiating, the way you should have negotiated with me before you sold me to the Blackwoods." My father looked at Richard. "Can she actually block other investments? With 15% in board allies, yes. She can block any proposal that requires majority approval." My father's shoulders sagged. "What exactly are you proposing?" Over the next hour, we negotiated terms. The private equity firm would invest $40 million. I would become VP of Sustainability and Renovation, with real authority over the transformation of all 12 properties. My father would remain CEO, but with oversight from the board. My 15% would remain mine. No marital trusts, no signing away control. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The investment closed 6 weeks later. By then, I'd already hired a team and started planning the renovation of our Boston property, the original hotel my grandfather had built. My parents and I don't have a warm relationship. Probably never will. But we have a professional one, which is more than we had when they were trying to sell my future. Ethan Blackwood got married last year to someone else. Someone who apparently didn't mind being a business transaction. Harrison Blackwood invested in a different hotel chain and pretends he never met me. My mother still sometimes brings up how I embarrassed the family. I remind her that they embarrassed themselves by thinking I'd go along with being traded like property. Today, Castellano Hotels is worth $180 million and growing. We're the first boutique luxury chain on the East Coast to achieve carbon neutrality. We've been featured in Travel Plus Leisure, Architectural Digest, and Forbes for our sustainable renovations that don't sacrifice luxury. I own 15% of that success. And unlike everything else in my life, nobody gave it to me. Nobody tried to take it from me. And nobody can tell me what to do with it. All because I had one signature left. One decision nobody had planned for. One move that changed everything. Let me tell you what I learned from all of this. Your family doesn't own your future. Even when they think they do. Even when they've planned it out and negotiated terms and made arrangements without your input. You always have one signature left. One decision they can't make for you. One moment where you get to choose what your life looks like instead of accepting what they've decided it should be. My parents thought they were being practical, solving a business problem using family resources. In their minds, they weren't selling me, they were creating an opportunity, a merger that would benefit everyone. But they never asked what I wanted. Never considered that I might have my own plans, my own power, my own path. They treated me like an asset to be leveraged instead of a person with autonomy. And when I finally used the one signature they didn't control, claiming the shares my grandfather had left me, I took back everything they'd tried to give away. If you're watching this and someone is trying to decide your future for you, if you're being pressured into a marriage or a career or a life you don't want, I need you to know something. You have power. Maybe it's not obvious. Maybe it's hidden in a trust agreement or a contract or a piece of paper nobody told you about, but it's there. Find it. Claim it. Use it. Don't let anyone, not your parents, not your family, not anyone tell you that you owe them your autonomy in exchange for their approval or their financial security. You don't owe anyone your future. My grandfather understood that when he set up the trust. He gave me power that couldn't be taken away, even if it could be hidden for a while. He believed I deserved control over my own life. He was right. And if you're in a situation where you need to fight for that control, where you need to use your one signature to change everything, do it. Don't wait for permission. Don't hope things will get better. Don't sacrifice yourself to solve other people's problems. Sign your name. Claim your power. Take back your future. I did, and it changed everything. Today, I'm standing in the lobby of the Boston Castellano Hotel, the one my grandfather built with his own hands 60 years ago. It's been completely renovated now. Solar panels on the roof, geothermal heating, reclaimed materials throughout, luxury that doesn't cost the earth. My name is on a plaque in the lobby. Sophia Castellano, VP of Sustainability and Renovation, in honor of Antonio Castellano's vision of excellence without compromise. It's the future I built, not the one they tried to give away. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that you're not property and your future isn't for sale, drop a comment and let me know. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, they can plan your future all they want, but they can't sign your name. Subscribe for more stories like this. I'll see you in the next one.